Good morning, third grade boys and girls. It's good to see you coming back to check your DMA. Please make sure that you come and watch your solutions video because these are super important to review, and let's keep up those third grade skills that you've been learning. So let's take a look at our first word problem or story problem. We have Samantha is planting tomatoes, and she plants 5 rows of 4 tomato seedlings. If you don't know what a seedling is, it's a baby plant seedling. So she's got 5 rows, and she's putting into each row 4 tomato seedlings. So it says, how many tomato seedlings does Samantha plant all together? So we want a total here. And so let's think about what this looks like as a visual bar diagram. Or we could also do it as an array, right? Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about rows, and arrays are objects put into rows, and then we look for the total. So this is multiplication if you haven't already figured out, because we want to know the total after we take the 5 rows and put 4 seedlings into each row. Now, once we do this, we can use what our understanding is of repeated addition. And actually, I only have 4 rows of 4. Now I have 5 rows with 4 seedlings in each row. So remember, with multiplication, it's groups, the number in each group, and our product is looking for our total. So we call this the product. Remember product? So we're using an array, right? We're using an array to help us show this idea or this visual. 4 seedlings each row. So now I could use my understanding of repeated addition. I could add 5 groups of 4. And of course, then I can start chunking these together. And then that would give me 16. And 16 and 4 more is going to give me 20. Or I could look at it as 5, 10, 15, 20. All right, so 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 20. So the number of seedlings that Samantha has planted is 20. Okay, now we're going to take what we know and we're going to write it into a response based on our question. So now we could say Samantha has planted 20 seedlings or tomato seedlings. And remember, seedlings are baby plants. Sometimes when you go to Walmart or some of the other garden stores, they have the seedlings already ready for you to plant. So Samantha has planted 20 seedlings because, and there's many different ways that we could explain this. We could say that we added 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4, or let's say we have 5 rows with 4 plants each row. And when you add those all together, and if you multiply, and remember this is multiply. If we were going to break this up, multiply. So it's got 3 syllables. If you're thinking about Mrs. Badger's way of breaking up your words there. And if you multiply 5 times 4, you get a product of 20. So make sure you're writing something down to explain your thinking. So we've modeled, we've written an equation, and we've found our answer, which is our product, and we've written out a response. So you can do that on the back of your paper or the back of your page. Remember, you have a place back here in the back to be able to do that. So make sure that you're doing that. Let's look at the second word problem. There's 2 word problems this morning. Lake Erie is 241 miles long. Lake Ontario is 193 miles long. How many miles long are Lake Erie and Lake Ontario all together? So what this tells me is I need to do what? If they're saying and all together, we're going to put these 2 amounts of these lengths together. So again, I'm going to get my paper. I know that Lake Erie is 241 miles long. I know that Lake Ontario is 193 miles long. And I know that we're trying to find, because we have our KFA strategy, right? What do we know? What are we trying to find? And how do we answer? Okay, so 241 miles long, 241, that's Lake Erie. So I'm just going to draw myself a bar diagram. This lake is 241 miles long. That's Lake Erie. I'm just going to label it so that I can remember. And then I also have Lake Ontario. So from here to here is 241, let's just say, and from here to here would be 193 in length, miles. These are all in miles. So I'm going to just put an M here for miles, okay? Or MI, because M means meters usually. So miles, and this is Lake, we said Ontario. So giving myself a visual is very important. So now I want to know the distance of them all together. From here all the way to here, together, all together. So I'm going to add these together. So if I go ahead and take 241 and 193 and I add them together, 200 plus 100, and I'm just going to write that down here, is 300. And 90 plus 40, well, I'm going to take this as 10 and 30. And why am I doing that? Because 90 is one more 10 away from 100. So 90 and 10 would be 100. And then 100 plus 30 would make 130. And then 3 plus 1, this is my ones place, is 4. Now, when I put this all together, you'll notice right here I have another 100 from when I carried or I regrouped the 90 as another 100 when I added that 10. So this would be 300 plus 100 is 400 plus 30 plus 4. Now I can put it all together with 434, or I can also use my algorithm of 241 and 193. I make sure that my place values are lined up because we don't want to add other place values to something that, or other place values to place values that they shouldn't be lined up with. So 3 plus 1 is 4. 90 plus 40 should be 130 because we just did that math right here. So we carry that 100, this 100 right here, to the hundreds place. And we have 100 plus 200 is 300 plus one more 100 is now 400s. So we have 434 miles altogether. Now, if I were going to estimate, what if they said about how long this would have been? Well, the word about would have let us know that we were going to estimate this problem. So what I want you to do in today's discussion for your clue words, I'm going to have you take 241 and 193, round them to the closest 100, and put an equation in there and find the estimate when you round each one of these to the nearest 100. So think about 241 rounded to the nearest 100 and 193 rounded to the nearest 100, and then you're going to find the estimate or the rounded version. And let's see how close it is to 434. It should be close to 434 if you round it correctly. So that is your clue or your discussion question in your math today, in your math folder. So now let's take a look at our second problem. And it says I have 8 times 2 times 3. Well, guess what, guys? Look, I've got two multiplication symbols now. And what that means is I have groups of groups. So what does that look like? Well, if I have 8 groups of 2, and then I take those 8 groups of 2 and I do it 5 times, then basically I've got groups of groups. So let's show or demonstrate what I mean by that. So I'm just going to use my paper here, and I'm going to use some colored markers here, and I'm going to do 8 groups of 2 using an array. So 8 rows. Let's do rows of 2. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do 8 times 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So far I've got 8 groups of 2. I've modeled this right here. And this would be 16. But they don't want it just one time. They want this 5 times. So I'm going to do this 4 more times to show 8 groups of 2. So 8 groups of 2. 2 times 8 groups of 2, and this is orange. Now I've got 3 times. Now I'm going to do 8 groups of 2 again, this time in brown. And finally, I'm going to do my last group of 8 groups of 2 in green. So now, I started off with my 8 groups of 2, but then I grouped it 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when I go to multiply this, I have 16 times 5. Now, I can use my understanding of repeated addition to help me with understanding how to get the product of this. Because why? What is multiplication? It's repeated addition. So I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Those are my tens. And then if I have 6 groups of 5 or 5 groups of 6, well, think about what 5 groups of 6 is. We should know that when we multiply by 5, we can count by 5s, right? So that would be 30, because 6 plus 6 is 12, plus 6 is 18, plus 6 is 24, plus 6 is 30. So now we take the 10s that we just added, and we take the 1s that we just added, and we put them together, and we get 80. So when we take 8 times 2, and then we multiply it by 5, we're going to get 80. Now it says to do it 2 ways, and I'm going to show you a second way, but I'm not going to model it for you. but I am going to show you how to group it. So another way you could think about this is you could do 2 groups of 5, and 2 groups of 5 would be 10, right? And then I do that 8 times. So 8 groups of 10, or 8 groups of 2 times 5 is basically what we're saying here. So if I do 8 groups of 2 times 5, or 10, then that would give me, if we know our multiplication facts, that's going to give us 80. So again, still going to give me 80 because again, it doesn't matter what order you multiply the factors in. You can switch those factors around in any place you want to. I could even take 8 times 5 and multiply it by 2, and I can move these factors in any place I want to because that's what our multiplication sentences say we can do. Just like adding numbers in any direction, I could have added 30 plus 50 or 50 plus 30. Doesn't matter what order I add them in because when I put them all together, they're all going to be equal to the same amount. So I could have multiplied 8 times 5, which is 40, and then multiply that by 2. So I have 2 groups of 40. And 2 groups of 40 is 40 and 40, and 40 and 40 again is 80. So again, I'm just showing you why when you switch your factors around, your product is still going to be the same. Now let's take our final problem. We've done a lot of this on our paper this morning, but I'm just going to show you here with this. So 8 times 10, and 8 times 10 is 80. So I'm just going to demonstrate that for you there. But you need to show me at least one of these ways by at least drawing a model of some kind. Now let's take a look at our equations for division. Guys, remember, when we divide, this tells us that we're sharing. This right here is not the same as this. These two symbols do not mean the same thing. Now, they can be related to each other, but they're related to each other when we use our understanding of a factor and a missing factor to find our quotient. So 24 put into groups of 8. I want to know how many groups of 8 I'm going to be able to make. So how many groups of 8 can I make or divide equally up? So I'm taking 24 and I'm putting it into groups of 8, and I want to know how many groups we end up with. Which tells me if I don't know my groups, but I do know how many's in each group, my total is going to be 24. I've just got to figure out how many groups of 8 I need. Well, if I put a group of 8 in one group, that's 8. And this is where repeated addition comes in handy. If I put in another group of 8 into this group, now I have 2 groups of 8. And now I'm at 16, which is not 24. So I haven't shared it equally yet. And now I get another group of 8. I put those 8 into a group, and now I have 24. So how many groups of 8 was I able to make? 3 groups of 8. Well, same thing goes here. How many groups of 8 will make 24? 3 groups of 8 will make 24. So this is your understanding of how division is related to multiplication. And then we could use this information to make fact families. So if we wanted to do that, we could say 8 times 3 is equal to 24, using our understanding of a fact family. And then we could say, and let me move this over here, and then we could say 24, and we could switch our 3 and our 8. So if I put, instead of putting it into groups of 8s, I could put it into groups of 3, and I would have 8 groups of 3. So my fact family, these are my other 2 equations. So let's go to our next one. We have 30 objects. We put them into, we don't know how many groups, but we know there's 5 in each group. Or we could say, oh, I got 5 groups. And I'm going to share those equally, these 30 objects equally into these 5 groups. So if I were to do that, I would count, and since this is an even number, I can go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30. Well, that happened to work out. So 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. How many groups of 5? Or how many groups of 6 was I able to make? 5 groups of 6. So again, using what I know about multiplication, if I know my multiplication facts, if I take that 5 and I do know how many groups of 6 it takes to make 30, then I know that my multiplication can check my division. So n is going to equal 6. And finally, 18 put into two groups, let's just say 2 groups. Well, if I have 2 groups, but I don't know how many's in each group, but I know that it's equal to 18, well, what could I put in here to give me 18? Well, I can't put 10 because 10 and 10 makes 20. So this wouldn't be 10, or excuse me, this wouldn't be 8. Right, it wouldn't be 10. What could it be? Well, we couldn't put 7 because 7 and 7 is 14. So we need to know our multiplication facts fluently so that we can know that 2 times 9, 2 groups of 9, is going to give me 18. Or if I take these 18 and divide them equally into 2 groups, there will be 9 in each group. 9 in each group. So those are the problems for today. Don't forget to go back into your discussion and do what I asked you to for this problem on Lake Erie. You're going to round each of these numbers to the nearest 100, and then you're going to add them to see if it's going to be about the same amount, which we got was 434. Okay, so I'm going to point you back over here. You're probably going to need a piece of paper or something to help you, or you can use the back of your paper here to help you with that problem. So don't forget, you always have a backside to use to help you show your work. Okay, so that's your discussion question for today. Don't forget to place that into your discussion in your Schoology folder. See you later on today, guys. We have whole group meeting and look forward to seeing you guys. Bye.